and welcome. You're on Learn Extra Live, and we're doing life sciences today. This is Eugen standing next to me, and I'm Katleho. As you know, Eugen, please let us know what we'll be doing today.
Well, today we're looking at ecology, and we're going to focus exclusively on the biosphere and some of the nutrient cycles. And yeah, I'm looking forward to interacting with the learners.
Okay, awesome. So you guys know that you can ask him any questions or any comments or even just a shout out to say welcome to the Learn Extra Mindset family. And yeah, we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Sure, you can walk over to your board.
Thanks,
Guys, so you know how to get hold of us. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/Learn Extra, and we're on Twitter at Learn Extra. So make sure today you make it awesome. I know life science is a favorite. You guys are a bit biased, but it is a favorite. So I know there'll be lots of interaction and lots of questions and comments and anything that you'd like to tell me. Please tell me. As you know that it's Wednesday and it's midweek, so there's a lots that's been going on at school that you can actually tell us about. Over to you again.
Thanks, Katleko. Welcome, guys. I know life sciences is probably one of the most interesting subjects that you all do. Today we're going to look at the environment, and we're going to focus specifically on the biosphere. Before I start, we must chat about what ecology is. Basically, ecology is the study of the interactions between the living and the non-living components in the environment. Specifically today we're looking at the biosphere. Okay, so let's go to the board. Right, so environmental studies. Okay, the concept of the biosphere. What does biosphere mean? Biosphere is made up of two words. Bio, meaning living, and sphere, something that is spherical in shape. Okay, so it obviously refers to the living organisms that occupy Earth. Okay. Right, so this is the part of the Earth where humans and other organisms are able to live. Okay, the Earth is the surface. The Earth is spherical in shape, and it supports life, and hence we call this the biosphere. The biosphere extends between 7,000 to 8,000 meters above the sea level and about 6,000 to 8,000 meters below sea level. If I were to draw a diagram to represent this, okay, this is what we're going to see. Okay, so we're seeing that here we've got land and we've got the ocean. Okay, these are your water bodies. Okay, so we say that the Earth, that the biosphere extends between 6,000 to 8,000 meters below the sea level and between 7,000 to 8,000 meters above. Okay, and these collectively form the biosphere. Okay, when we look at the concept of the biosphere, we need to look at the interactions of different components. Okay, life essentially exists on Earth because of energy available to organisms. Energy is available to organisms in the air, in the water, and in the soil, and hence both the air, the water, and the soil all supports life on Earth. Let's have a look at these in further detail. Okay. Life exists where energy from the sun can interact with the lithosphere, the atmosphere, and the hydrosphere. When we look at the sun provides radiant energy. And that energy is available to all organisms. Energy is responsible. This energy is required by them for different physiological processes. Let's look at the Earth, the lithosphere. Okay, when we look at the lithosphere, this refers to the surface rocks and the soil on the surface of the Earth. If you look at the air forms the atmosphere, and that is the air that we all need essentially for oxygen and plants, carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. We also have life in the water, and we refer to that as the hydrosphere. Hydro refers to water, and sphere, the Earth. Okay. Right, so the three main parts of the biosphere are the atmosphere, which is the air, the hydrosphere, which refers to all the water that exists on Earth, and the lithosphere, the rocks and the soil. Let's look at the atmosphere in detail. Okay. the atmosphere is made up of gases, various gases, and these gases need to be stable in the environment. So we know that the air is not only exclusively oxygen, but is made up of nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and some of the other gases. Let's look at the composition of the air in the atmosphere. Okay, so the atmosphere has gases. It has oxygen, which is 21%, carbon dioxide, which is 0.03% of the atmosphere, nitrogen, which is a whopping 71% of the environment of the atmosphere, and the remaining gases being water vapor and hydrogen. Water vapor is essentially H2O, and hydrogen, a very important element in most of the organic compounds. Okay. It is important, the atmosphere is very important for two major physiological processes, respiration and photosynthesis. It also plays a very important role in filtering out the harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. And we know that in recent times, the effect of the ozone depletion has had increased global warming, and hence the atmosphere has played a very important role in controlling the amount of harmful rays that penetrates the Earth's surface. Okay. Right, the next component is the hydrosphere. When we look at the hydrosphere again, hydro refers to water. We'll see that the hydrosphere is made up of all the water bodies on the Earth, and these can be divided into two types of water bodies. The first one consists of the oceans, and the second, the rivers and the lakes. When we look at the ocean, this supports the aquatic organisms that survive in a marine environment, meaning that they live in water that is salty, whereas we've got freshwater organisms that survive in water that is found in rivers and in lakes and your dams, etc. Okay. The freshwater makes up only 3% of the hydrosphere, whereas the remaining 97% is made up by the oceans. Okay. And what is interesting about this point is that we humans rely on this 3% for our existence. Okay. Let's move on. It is the habitat for many aquatic organisms, as well as microorganisms such as plankton, fish, your larger organisms such as sharks, and your whales. And these all depend on water, and hence this water supports their life. And it's important that the quality of water needs to be maintained. We will discuss the impact of that humans have had on the hydrosphere. Okay. The third component is the lithosphere, and then that refers to the crust of the Earth. Okay. When we look at the lithosphere, it refers to all the rocks and the soil. In specific, a thin layer of soil on the surface of the Earth, and that is what we refer to that as the topsoil, and this is essentially what supports life, and especially the plant life. We also have microorganisms living in the soil, and we'll discuss that in a while. It is a source of ions and minerals which all living organisms need. Towards the start of grade 10, your teachers would have discussed with you the inorganic compounds as well as organic compounds. Some of the minerals and minerals and ions that we rely on include sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, chloride, calcium. These all come from the soil. The soil is also a habitat for microscopic invertebrates as well as your larger vertebrates. So what are the invertebrates that live in soil? Some of the invertebrates include firstly refer to organisms that do not have a skull or a vertebral column, and these would include your earthworms that you find in your garden, so your earthworms. Even the bacteria that survive in the soil. It is said that if you take a fistful of soil, and if you were to count the number of bacteria in that fistful of soil, there'll be probably more bacteria in that than the amount of humans living on Earth. So that's the number of bacteria that we have in a palm full of soil. Your larger vertebrates could be your rodents, the rats, Many of the other organisms that live in dwellings or in burrows in the ground all depend on the soil for their existence. Okay. Before we move on, let's recap. So the biosphere, three components: the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere. Okay. So when scientists and ecologists study the biosphere, it is broken up into three different components. Okay, we look at them in smaller areas. Into smaller areas called. These include the following. Okay, the biosphere, and this biosphere refers to and I often refer to this as the umbrella under which all the other little areas fall under. So that will be the biosphere. Below the biosphere, we have many biomes that make up the biosphere. We have several ecosystems that make up a biome, a single biome, and we have several communities within an ecosystem. And within a community, we have several populations that form communities, and we have organisms that make up a population. We're going to look at each one of these in detail. Now, sorry. Okay. So this slide shows you the biosphere, which is made up of many biomes. Biomes are made up of many ecosystems, and an ecosystem supports many communities. You'll find several populations within a community, and a population is made up of organisms. Okay. Right. Here's an example of a biosphere. Okay. Here we have a single organism, the springbok, which we're all familiar with. Okay. These springbok make up a population. So population refers to several individuals belong to the same species inhabiting a specific area. Okay. Several different populations of birds, the meerkats, and springbok collectively in an area form a community. Several communities form an ecosystem. And an ecosystem with other ecosystems put together form the biome. Okay, let's look at these in greater detail in the next slide. Okay. Are you guys following? Okay. Right. Please let me get some live feed as to whether I'm going too fast or slow. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Okay. Let's look at the biosphere. The biosphere is that part of the earth where humans and other organisms are able to live. Okay. We said that a biome is a group of ecosystems that have a similar climate with a similar dominant community. So made up of several communities that form that biome. An ecosystem is then a collection of organisms that live together in a particular place, as well as their non-living or their physical environment. So it's the interaction between the organisms and their environment. Communities are a collection of different populations that live together in a defined area, and that is very important. A community has a defined area in which the organisms interact. Okay. A population, and this term often comes up as definitions. A population refers to a group of individuals that belong to the same species that live in the same area. So essentially, if we look at the Kruger National Park, and if we talk of the elephant population, we refer to a group of individuals that belong to the same species, obviously elephants, that inhabit the same area. A defined area would be the Kruger National Park. That would be an example of a population. So when we refer to a population, we refer to a group of organisms in a specific area belonging to the same species. The organisms that form a population are the single units of life that inhabit that area. So living organisms inhabit different areas. We refer to them as organisms, and they form populations when they group together. Species refers to a group of organisms that have similar characteristics to one another. They can interbreed and most importantly, produce offspring that are fertile. Let me repeat that again. Okay, so when we refer to the term species, we refer to a group of organisms that can interbreed and produce offspring that are fertile. And they all have similar characteristics. Okay. Let's look at the interconnections in the biosphere. Okay. So life on Earth is supported by a thin zone, and we refer to that as the biosphere, and that is made up of soil, air, water. Living organisms are found mostly in the upper layers of the hydrosphere and on the lower layers of the atmosphere. Life on Earth is linked to each of these three spheres. The two main components of the biosphere are the biotic components and the abiotic components. Let's look at these in detail. Biotic refers to the living components, whereas the abiotic referred to the non-living components. Okay. Examples of the non-living components would be the organisms that you find in a population. I mean, and these could be plants, animals, both microscopic, macroscopic, and we can go and look at the abiotic components, and these are the non-living, which would include the soil, the pH of the soil, temperature of the environment, and these are all factors that influence the type of organisms that inhabit a specific area. Okay. When we study the biosphere, it's important to understand the interactions between organisms and the environment. And these interactions are seen through various cycles. So during the next few slides, we're going to look at the nutrient cycle, and we're going to see how energy and nutrients are available to organisms and how that cycle is maintained in the biosphere. Okay. So the nutrient cycle. Living organisms need energy. Energy is needed. Energy is needed for physiological processes, for respiration. And that is where the nutrient cycle is very important. To stay healthy, living organisms need those nutrients. Okay. So the following cycle we're going to look at is the nutrient cycle. Okay. So what are the producers of nutrients in the environment? When we look at the producers, we refer to the organisms that produce energy. So the producers would be your plants. And these plants would produce energy through a process known as photosynthesis. Yes, you probably have done this already in school, photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a key process where organisms utilize energy. They use the radiant energy from the sun, then they convert that into chemical energy. This energy is then trapped in plants, as well as in aquatic organisms that can photosynthesize, and that energy is then available to your consumers. So your consumers refer to organisms that will utilize the energy produced by your producers, and these include, so the consumers would include your primary consumers, and these would be the herbivores. Then you get your secondary consumers, and your tertiary consumers. Okay, so you have your producers, your plants that photosynthesize, and they produce the chemical energy that is then utilized by your primary consumers. Your primary consumers will then be your herbivores. These are your plant consuming organisms, so it'll be your sheep, your cattle. Your secondary consumers would be your predators, and your tertiary would be organisms that consume both omnivores and carnivores. And these indirectly get the energy from the plants through a process of which photosynthesize their food.
Can we go for a quick break?
I'm sure, Katleko, we need that now, and I'm sure our learners will catch up with some of their
Yes.
notes.
Yes, of course. And you guys, of course, know that you can ask questions during the break. So shoot your questions off to Eugen and he'll be happy to answer them. See you right after this.